Şimdi yine Google'dan Gary Illyes olacak. Now I would like to introduce Gary Illyes.
Hello? Hello? Hi. Yeah, that's me. So usually I do the presentation that Fatih was just doing. And I like that presentation because it's simple and because I've done that presentation many, many times. I decided to do this one because I started focusing more on media search in general because it's something that people forget about, something that people don't focus on, and I strongly believe that they are missing out on a lot of traffic and a lot of valuable visitors from these search engines. We will focus on a few things in this presentation. I will try to cut it short just to have some time for Q&A. But in general, we are going to talk about how Google Images works, what is SEO, just in short, only 2 slides, and how you can do better on Google Images. It's actually super simple, but most people miss out on it. My name is Gary. I'm a trends analyst for Google for the past 8 years, roughly. I work from Zurich. I'm an underwater photographer, also an assistant dive instructor when not working, and I love to cook. I spend an insane amount of time in the kitchen. My father was a chef, so we spent, as kids, lots of time in the kitchen. And in my family house, the kitchen just got a little old. As you can imagine, I mean, I'm like, I don't know, like 60 years old or whatever. I was a child a long time ago, obviously, so the kitchen just got old. So I'm looking to renovate that kitchen. What's my first step? I want ideas, right? I want to see what others are thinking. I want to inspire myself based on what others are doing. So I look up some images on Google Images. I search for beautiful kitchens. This is what I see on my mobile phone. I can quickly identify which are the pages that are useful for me based on the titles and the site name from the results. And then if I want to do something more funny, or if I want some higher resolution, then I can refine my search. Once I clicked on an image, I get on this page where I can further see what the page will be about. This actually comes from the title of the page, as well as the description. Basically, whatever you put in the meta description will end up there. Same for the title. And then I can create lists, for example, or share this particular single view with someone that might decide that I don't get to spend that much money on the kitchen. I create from there a collection. I can share this collection with my financial advisor, for example, and then she will tell me that, no, you cannot spend this much money on a kitchen. I can do the same things, or when I dwell in, then I can do searches for every component of the kitchen. I can look for lighting fixtures, for faucets, for sinks, for other things that might show up in a kitchen. And then I can also dwell into specific products. If I want to buy one specific thing, then I can do that. I can identify those results right from the search result page. Basically, what I do is visually discovering the web. And I think Fatih is also talked about this from feeds perspective. Now, all these things that I showed you here are controlled by you as an SEO or the webmaster, basically whoever puts up the images on the pages. It's not rocket science, but it does need some work because Google has to, and other search engines as well, have to understand the pages. They have to understand the images on the pages. First, let's see how Google Images work. How do we get from a page like this to a search result page like this? Internally, we split up search, whether web search or image search, into three main components. First is crawling, second is indexing, third is serving and ranking. With crawling, this is probably something that you already know all too well. Googlebot goes out, follows links, discovers pages, grabs the content, sends it back to Caffeine to indexing. In images case, the most important thing is that Googlebot can see the images. How Googlebot sees the images is basically looking at the HTML of the page and looking for image HTML tags. And then grabs the source attribute that is then sent to indexing. If you don't have that in your pages, then you are going to have trouble with Google Images. Once we have the images, we categorize them. What is food? What is fruit? What is an apple? What is a banana? What is a pie? And then once someone searches for pictures of fruits, then from this list, we pick only the fruits, or we try to pick only the fruits, and present them on this page. This is the simple version of how search works. Internally, we have a version that is about 2 hours long. Unfortunately, I can't give that talk externally. We also extract some additional information from the pages. As I said, we extract the title, for example. We use the page title to show on the single view as well as on the search result pages. We extract structure data. So if you have a product, for example, then if you mark up your pages and your images with product markup schema or product schema, then that is going to be picked up by image search. If you have recipes, if you put recipe markup on the pages, then that again is going to be picked up by Google Images. So what is SEO? Who's an SEO in the room? Almost everyone, okay. Well, let's ask Google. Google says that search engine optimization is the process of maximizing the number of visitors to a particular website by ensuring that the site appears high on the list of results returned by a search engine. So what that basically means is that make sure that search engines can access the pages and their content, right? That's one of the first steps. Then create and optimize the content of the pages so they will rank higher. And then add and optimize metadata just so you get perhaps an additional exposure through recipe search, for example. So how can you do better on Google Images? Well, you do SEO that is specific to Google Images. And the first thing that everyone misses, well, not everyone, but a large percentage of SEOs misses, is that if Googlebot cannot access the images, if the images are blocked by robots.txt, then we are not going to be able to index those images. That means that you are not going to show up in Google Images. That basically ends your Google Images career very early. What you do to fix this is, well, first you have to identify whether you are blocked or you are blocking the images or not. For this, you can use the URL inspection tool in Search Console. That's in the new version of Webmaster Search Console. And Don't laugh. It's the new version, or you can find that in the new version of Search Console. Or you can use, for example, the mobile-friendly test, which will do the same thing for you. Once, or if it says that the page cannot be reached or the image cannot be reached, then you can check your robots.txt file. See if there's a disallow for images in general or the directory that hosts that contains the images. If there's a block there, remove that, because if you keep it there, Googlebot will not be able to access the images. Next, help robots find the images. This is not just for Googlebot. This is also for other bots, like BingBot or probably Yandex as well. Image sitemaps are generally the second most important discovery method for search engines. The first is following pages from or through links from one page to the other. Second one is sitemaps. If you put your images in sitemaps, specifically image sitemaps, then that will help search engines discover the images much faster than usual, than through normal discovery. Building an image sitemap is not hard. It requires some effort, though. We have plenty of documentation on how to create them. Essentially, this is how it would look like. Basically, you have the normal LOC, location tags, where you put the landing page, and then you have as many image tags as you require, as many as images you have on the page, where you can put the location of the images. If you search our documentation, I'm fairly certain that you are going to run into the proper documentation, but in short, this is how it should look like. I actually have no idea what I wanted to say with this picture. It looks nice, but oh, I think I know. So the two pages that I'm showing on these tablets are substantially different, right? On one page I have lots of images. On the other one, I have one image and just some white space around it. Which one do you think is better for search? Is it better to have on a page lots of images that are typically the same or follow the same theme, or just have one image and no text, no nothing around it? Yes, the first one. Basically, the more content we have on the page, the better in general for SEO. Now, you can also go overboard with it. Like, there are sites that put like hundreds or thousands of images on the page. That's also bad. But if you limit it to a handful of images, that can be super, super helpful for image search, especially if you annotate the images properly. I will talk about this a little bit later. Here, the good thing is, on the first version, the good thing is that the page is properly titled. So basically, it tells which are my favorite foods, and also says that these are pictures of food. In the HTML of that page, there are image tags. Image tags are actually required for Google to see the images. If you are doing lazy loading, for example, and there are no image tags on initial page load, then because we don't do user interactions that would trigger lazy or showing the images, your images will not show up in search To avoid that, you can use a no-script tag, for example, and just include in the no-script the images. But generally, we need an image tag, and we need a source attribute to see the images. Besides that, we need an alt attribute. Well, we don't need it. You need it. We do basic image understanding. Basically, we have all these weird machines that try to make sense of images. We can see if an image is an apple or a banana, but if you have two famous people in the pictures, then we are not going to be able to say that one is Michael Jackson and the other one is Justin Bieber. We can identify simple things, simple concepts, but not complex, or not overly complex concepts. And for that, the alt attribute is super, super helpful, because that will help us understand the image better. So, here's an example. I have an image tag. That's a relatively good image tag. The file name could be better. If you can, then if you put better file names, basically something that describes what the image is about, that's better. But of course, if you are a big site, big stock photo site, for example, that's not feasible, it's not a problem. But then here, in this case, I just put in the alt attribute just food. Well, that's too generic for this picture. That's not a good alt attribute. It's a good start, maybe, but it's not good for ranking purposes. Come on, you can do this. A much better one would be if I put chicken burrito with lime pieces in the alt attribute. And this is not something I want to rank for. This image would probably rank for just burrito or best burrito or something like that. This is a piece of text that describes the image, and that's it. Nothing more, nothing less. You can go crazy with the alt attribute. You can put very long sentences as well in the alt attribute, but generally that will eventually just slow down the page if you have many images on the site, so I would not do that. But there's generally no character limit on how long the alt attribute can be. The point is that use the alt attribute to describe the image precisely and concisely. And then add structured data. Structured data is super useful for understanding what a page is about in general. Any kind of structured data. Basically, if you go on schema.org and you find a schema that may apply on some page that you have, put it there. Put it on, because it will help Google understand that page. Now, for Google Images, we only use a select few schemas to understand the pages. And those are, if I recall correctly, product and recipe. Other than that, for Google Images specifically, we are not using other schemas. But you still want to put schema on those pages, other kind of schema, because web search can make use of those. And the better we understand your pages, the better chances you have ranking. I already talked about this, but if you have a good title on your pages, then that title is going to be used on image search as well. We use those titles typically for web search. Basically, when you see a result, the blue link is actually, well, not always, but in the majority of the cases, it's actually coming from the HTML of the page. in case of image search, in case of Google Images, it almost always comes from the page itself. The meta description also. So, to sum it up and to move on to Q&As, because I'm sure at least some of you have questions. Ensure your images are accessible to Googlebot. This is the first thing that you want to do, and you should do this as soon as you get back to office. Because we do see that many sites block their images, and they don't even know that they are blocking them. Second, add an image sitemap so Googlebot can find the images. This is kind of optional, but if you can get into the habit of creating sitemaps for things that you want to see in search, that's a win for you and for your company. The text around the image is actually one of the best ways to tell search engines in general what the image is about. Basically, on sites like National Geographic, for example, you can see that below their images, there's always a caption for the image. That actually helps Google and other search engines understand the image that it relates to. The title, the description, these are all super helpful for us to understand the images and thus help you rank better. And finally, add structured data to your pages. Don't just add the ones that create a search feature, like recipe markup or whatever. Add anything that you can find on schema.org that can be used on the page. For example, if you have products, put a product markup. If you have book review, then put review markup on the page. But use structured data because it helps search engines understand the pages better. And especially in images case, you get small badges for products and recipes. I think those are the only two currently. But you get little badges on your images, which may drive more clicks to your pages. I will leave it on this slide. We recently, a couple months ago, we published new image publishing guidelines. Well, actually, we refreshed the old ones, and we added new stuff to it. Basically, we modernized it a little bit, and we are still working on pushing out new versions or a new version of it. The new Search Console, that is not called Webmaster Tools. By now, everyone should have access to the new version. If you don't, then ping me, because then that's an issue. And if you want to connect with us and ask more questions, then that's the link where you want to go. And with that, thank you.
Thank you so much. This year, we got the questions from an app. Mm-hmm. So we already have a lot of questions, but after that, if we have time, maybe we can just let them to ask you questions.
Sounds great.
Yeah, there is a long question, so I have to read, I guess. Scrapers are massively stealing traffic on Google Images by abusing duplicate content filters. There is a well-known vulnerability on Google Images. If I copy your image on my domain, then I steal your ranking and you disappear. Will you solve this issue, they say?
I will need examples, so please find me after this talk. I will give you my business card and send me an email about this, or either me or Fatih. This sounds serious enough that I would want to take a look into it. Mm-hmm. In general, scrapers, at least in web search, we generally think that it's not worth dealing them. Basically, if you see them, if you see that they are dealing or stealing your content, or borrowing your content, then file a DMCA against them. And if there are enough DMCAs filed against the site, then that site will rank lower. So that's one way to solve it. Add rel canonical to your pages, just to make sure that you give us an extra signal that your page should be canonical. Include stuff in your sitemaps. Basically, if you see that a page is copied by a scraper, then adding that page in your sitemap can actually do miracles. And place links in your page, because what I see very often is that scrapers just take the content one-to-one, so basically they copy everything, and they very often leave the links in the page. They don't change the links. So if you put your put links in your page that point back to your site, that's basically you get a free link.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it's a question for the.
But yeah, find me after and give me a URL if that's okay.
Great. So there's an interesting question.
Okay.
For example, I want to get ranked in different search engines. For example, I have any English content, but I don't have any other. For example, I want to get listed in Google.com.tr as well. So he asked that, can I use alt text as food, meal, and it's in Turkish meaning yemek, for example?
Sure. You can absolutely do that. For us, it wouldn't make sense to limit that.
Yeah.
Basically, what can you use there? If you have different versions of your site, so basically, if you have like an English site and you have a Turkish site, then it's much better if you use Turkish metadata, including alt attribute on the Turkish version and then pure English on the English version. But if you have, or if you don't have that ability, then you can just safely mix the languages. It will not cause any trouble.
By the way, what about this? For example, even if I don't have an alt text for my image, Google is able to understand what the image includes, or?
So we do very basic image understanding. As I said, we can distinguish between, let's say, a cat and food, or a cat and apple. But if you put together or put next to each other two kinds of cat, like a Egyptian cat and Siamese cat, for example, we are not going to be able to tell that one is Siamese, the other one is Egyptian.
Yeah.
We will see that there are two cats in the picture, but not the type of the cat. If that's important to you, that we should be able to see that one or what kind of cats they are, then make use of the alt attribute and describe the cats there. If you don't care about it, even then I would recommend that using alt attribute, because all these extra processing that we do, including rendering or image understanding, these take time. Sometimes, even for rendering, it may take many days to get a rendered version of a page. Yeah. For images, it might take even longer to understand what an image is about. Because basically, there's a very long list of images that we want to process. Yeah. And new images are added to it all the time. And we are just going through that list slowly.
Yeah, great. So let me check our app. Is there a new question? We have actually not exactly related to this content, but people generally ask that your personal opinion about the future of organic search, actually.
Okay. I will pick up my water, okay? I need a drink. The future of organic search. Organic search is not a static thing. We are, or our engineers are working tirelessly making the product better and better for the users. That means that sometimes the changes that you see on the search result page are fairly aggressive. And basically we do that to make sure that the user engagement on our side is up. But in no cases we do that to screw the content providers or the content owners. If we show a featured snippet, for example, we link back to the site from where the featured snippet is coming from, and we try to help the site still do good. Yeah. And if you look at the, I think Stone Temple did a study that if you get a featured snippet, then your traffic will like skyrocket usually. Yeah. So I do think that like those features are or can be good for the site as well. In the future, I'm expecting that we are going to see more changes on the search result pages, mainly because it's a dynamic thing. Right? Exactly. Basically, we are going to try out new things, see how people react to it, and then maybe we are going to see that they don't like it, for example, and then we will just take it away. But I don't expect that organic search or SEO is going anywhere in the next many years. I think we have a quite stable job, yeah. And job security is fairly good. So I don't think that we are going to be deprecated. Okay, great. Other things that are coming are probably voice search. I don't know yet how that will look like because even though the number of voice searches are going up, it's not. I don't feel that it's significant enough that I would need to focus on it. Mm-hmm. And voice search already works fairly well, which means that whatever people were doing until now for web search in general works really well for voice search as well. So perhaps you don't need to do anything different. Yeah. But we would need to look into that. Other than that, I can't think of other things. Probably other surfaces. Like, for example, the feed that Fatih was showing. Like, for example, that's a new surface. Yeah. But that's also not part of organic search. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah. There are many questions. I think I am not going to be able to ask all of them. But maybe if you have time, then maybe yeah. I can ask you face to face. Thank you so much again to be here. Thank you.